So I would have maybe gone to the odd Sunday school class growing up, but didn't meet Jesus until I was 12, and was in a local youth club. And I think at that time, I suppose I would say I was really on fire for God. Like those few years after that, I was involved in everything, and just I had so much energy. I mean, it's because you're a teenager, you have all this energy, and I just put that all into God, and anything He wanted me to do, I was there and doing it. And it was at that time, actually, of my life that I met my lovely husband, Andrew. He was a leader at the same time as I was in youth club, and obviously he liked me a little bit because he asked me to marry him. And we got married then in September 2014. And I suppose maybe the few years around, nothing to do with Andrew, but a few years around before we got married and just after we maybe both had kind of slipped away from God a wee bit. And I think maybe it's just life. Sometimes life just happens. And we had a really good life and everything's great. And we had nothing really major that would have caused that to happen other than just life. And I suppose that brings me up to 2 years after that, in September 2016. I was making dinner on a Friday night and got a phone call to say that Andrew had been in a motorbike accident. And I was very much aware, but from the voice on the other side of the phone, that things weren't good, but I suppose just prayed that they would be okay. So at the scene of the accident, Andrew had a bleed in his chest. So he was bleeding out, which basically most people don't survive. And whenever he came to A&E, they had told us that they don't see injuries like his, because injuries like his don't make it. So I suppose that's kind of the miracle point of our story, because God saved him in those moments. And it was so clear for us as a family for everything that was put in place at that time. So there were 2 paramedics nearby who attended Andrew and saved his life. And there were also about half a dozen people who knew the Lord who instantly started praying. So people who, before I had a clue, while I was still doing the spuds or something, like all these people were praying for my husband. And for us as a family, we have that's been how the start of our story, I suppose, of prayer. And I'll talk a little bit about that, just how powerful prayer is and how much we have experienced that. So got to A&E, and we were kind of told it takes 10 minutes to kind of get someone through and process, and then we can go in and see them. But we saw Andrew 10 hours later because he had to go through multiple surgeries, and I think they had to wait to get people in who knew what to do with him, basically, because they weren't used to it. And in those moments, so they had come, the first thing we had heard was that Andrew had a spinal injury and a head injury, that he would never walk again, but that he would also never wake up. But then they told us they were going to operate on his heart to stop the bleed, but that he would probably die during the operation. So as a family, we kind of told them not to. Me specifically had said, if he's already gone, if you're already telling me I don't have a husband anymore, can you not just leave him alone and let him just be with his family as he goes? But thankfully they didn't really listen to me or the family, so they continued to work. And he's right there. So I suppose over the next couple of weeks, we were continually told that Andrew wouldn't wake up, and if he did, he wouldn't have a personality, and there'd be nothing there. So it was in those moments then when we were just absolutely crying out to God. So the first time I left the hospital was a Sunday night and went straight to a prayer meeting at our old church. And it was a room full of people that I knew, a lot of them, but there was a lot of people there I did not know. And as I looked around this room, I think almost everybody in sight was absolutely breaking their heart for my husband and crying out to God. And it was kind of, I suppose, a really surreal moment for me, because I'm thinking, why is everybody so invested in this? Why is everyone absolutely breaking their hearts for someone that they don't know? And And that was kind of our journey of our relationship with people. We would have messages from people who would say that they cannot get to the bathroom in the morning before they are stopped in their tracks, and God is telling them to pray for Andrew. People who are waking up in the middle of the night feeling like they're under spiritual attack, and their way of getting out of that was to pray for Andrew. And these stories just kept coming in left, right and centre, and we're going, God, what are you doing here? Why are you prompting all these people to pray? Are you just trying to teach us how to pray, or what's happening? And I'm aware that there are times in life that we feel prompted to pray for these things and we don't get the answers we want. And I don't have a lot to say about that right now, but I know that that's really hard. But in our situation, we just felt like God was going to save him, so we continued to pray. And share the first time we kind of knew that Andrew was in there. Someone close to me who doesn't know Jesus cried out to him one day and said, if you're real, if you're there, show me if Andrew's there. And that night I sent them a video. Andrew had just been taken off the ventilator, and they were trying to see, he wasn't responding to any commands, he wasn't doing what he needed to be doing. But when the ventilator came off, he was grabbing it. So it showed that his brain knew there was something on his chest, and his hand knew where to go to get it. And whenever my hand was on his chest, he was also grabbing my hand. And I had said to the nurse, I know that he doesn't know that's me, he doesn't know it's my hand, he just feels something. And it was that same day that he then grabbed my hand and interlocked his fingers with mine. And I was asking all the nurses, like, is he doing this with you, or is this just me? Is it because I'm his wife? So apparently it was just me. So that was the first glimpse that we had that, okay, Andrew's here. And I just think it's amazing that it took someone who doesn't know Jesus. Not that it took someone, but it was someone who doesn't know Jesus who cried out to God, and God answered his prayer in that moment. That was a pretty big moment for me. But long story in between, there's a lot that happened, so I'm just going to kind of brush over it. Andrew was 5.5 weeks in ICU, then 2 months-ish in 4F, and 9 months in Musgrave in the brain injury unit, with a lot of lovely people in here tonight, which is so lovely. But he now has 2 different conditions due to the head injury, which are called aphasia and dyspraxia. So aphasia just means that he struggles to maybe get the right words. So you could look at a brown shoe and call it yellow. Everything's orange, though. Every colour is orange when you're playing Uno. So things are just a little muddled, and we've just been doing a lot of work to try and get those back into order, which has been pretty good. We are getting there. And speech-wise, is dyspraxia means that whenever he tries, the signals from his brain to the muscles in his mouth are broken. So whenever he tries to say something, maybe his words don't form out right. And there was maybe a time when all he could say was Emma, which was lovely for a while, but then we needed more. So we've kept progressing. And now I suppose you have a pretty big word bank, and we basically communicate by a series of words, and I fill in all the blanks, which sometimes is a breeze and we feel like champions, and other times it's a wee bit of a struggle. But yeah, we're at a very different point now. When I look back to those times in ICU, I had just, in my mind, lost my husband. So my life I didn't really feel like I had much going for me. So all I had was Jesus in those moments. So from going from a person who was basically doing life, still loved Jesus, but wasn't involving him in my life, he was my every breath that I took, and everything I did in my day was consulted with him. And it was actually a really special time in my life, one that I'm actually really privileged to have gone through. And I experienced him in ways I haven't before. And I suppose I learnt a lot there as well, and I felt like he taught me a lot. And one of the things that he taught me that I'm trying to remind myself of is just that verse, do not worry about tomorrow, or tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And that was the moment that we were in at that point. It was like, okay, God, get us to 12 o'clock, get us to 1 o'clock. You know, it was each day, each hour, because you just couldn't look past tomorrow because it was just really painful and unnecessary in those moments. And I think we're kind of, what Andrew and I were kind of chatting before that we wanted to share was that life is really hard. Like, our story is a story of hope, and you know, we have witnessed the miracle that is Andrew sitting here now, and we've also witnessed the healing power of Jesus and the healing power of prayer in our lives, and it's been so strong. But it's also really, really hard sometimes, and I suppose we're in a period of where we're starting to really go through grief. So the loss of our previous life, the loss of the ability to hop on a plane and go on a holiday over summer when everyone else is away. But we have been kind of going through that, but in that then we're also learning a lot more about our dependence on God and how much we need him in our lives. And maybe before, when our life was pretty cozy, we could have gone through and kind of done it by ourselves and had God almost in the back burner, and that fit okay, but not that it brought that much happiness, but it was doable. But now I think we need to remind ourselves daily just to pick up our cross and just to turn to him every day. And that's been something that we're really trying to encourage each other with and go through with now. And I suppose if you would be here and be feeling that similar way, my advice is that you're not going to fix yourself overnight, and you can't just make yourself feel happy, and you can't just pray and then everything feels better. Like, it is hard, and it is that day by day or that hour by hour. But when you have hope in Christ, that just is, it's something, I suppose it's something that you can't explain, but for us, that's what gets us to tomorrow and what gets us to 12 o'clock. And maybe if you were looking for anything to pray for right now, it would be that. Andrew needs some kind of short-term healing with issues that are happening at the minute, which is kind of holding us back in life. So we're just really praying that we can get past this soon and things can heal up. And also, you know, currently Andrew doesn't have the use of his legs. He has some feeling in his legs, but that is kind of where it ends. And we're both still, you know, we don't know what the future brings for us, and we're not really looking too far ahead, but we're still praying and still asking God. You know, we don't know what his will is, and we'll just continue to pray for the things that we want until we get an answer to that. And, you know, it might not be the answer we want, and I think we know that that's okay. But if you can pray with us in that, we would also be really appreciative of it. And yeah, just for life, and to continue to love each other well and to look after each other well. And yeah, that's maybe me.